Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
Now joining us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is our fourth inductee into our Guest Hall of Fame tonight, and that is former Falcons, Rams, and Broncos quarterback Chris Miller. Chris played his college ball at the University of Oregon, where he remains 7th on their all-time passing yards list and 9th in touchdown passes. He was a first-round draft pick, the 13th overall selection in 1987 by the Atlanta Falcons, and he played in the league from 87 to 99 for the Falcons, Rams, and Broncos. In 1999, he was inducted into the University of Oregon Athletics Hall of Fame. A few years later, in 2005, he was inducted into the State of Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. And tonight we are very honored to induct him into our Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame. Hey, Chris and Bob, thank you for joining us and being such a great guest over the years.
No, thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on. And I think I'm about 33 years removed from University of Oregon. I'm still in the top 10, so I'm still hanging on by a thread, man.
Indeed. So, Chris, I want to start our time with you. First of all, congratulations again is in order for being named the offensive coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks in the XFL. They're joining your old head coach, June Jones. Talk about the opportunity there.
Well, first off, thank you guys for inducting me. I'm quite humbled. That's an awesome honor. You guys do a great job. I hope you get some water, because I'm sure your throats are sore from talking to these guys, or maybe you're listening so much. But anyways, the XFL opportunity is a great opportunity. June and I were together with the Atlanta Falcons for 3 years. He was my offense coordinator, quarterback coach then. We had a great relationship back then and played golf with Steve Bartkowski and Billy Joe Tolliver a lot. And so we've kept in contact over the years, and I coached with him in the East-West Shrine game in 2016. And he told me that he was going to go out and meet with Oliver Luck and talk about the Houston Roughnecks head coaching job for the XFL. And right after he got hired, he happened to be in Portland, and we came and met me here at Westland High School, and we talked about the opportunity. And he's just a great human being. I love him to death. He's fun to work for and work with, so I'm really excited about the opportunity.
So are we going to see a little run and shoot in Houston?
I think you're going to see a lot of run and shoot, because June's going to run his stuff. You know, I'll collaborate a little bit and interject some things that I've had success with, and I like. Our other co-coordinator is Dan. What's Dan's last name? I'm drawing a blank, but he's a long-time offense coordinator. Worked with June Jones. Dan Morrison worked with June Jones in Hawaii and SMU. They've been together about 16 years, so. It'll be 98% run and shoot, 2% my Chris Miller good ideas, I guess you'd say, maybe.
and Chris, talk about what you're seeing so far and sort of the foundation for the XFL. I mean, we saw the Alliance of American Football. They weren't even able to make it through their first season. We've had the XFL in the past that didn't make it. Are you convinced this one is going to hang on?
I really am. I think Vince McMahon learned a lot of lessons probably in the first go around. You know, it's a little bit more of a sluttier version of football, if you will, and a little bit more sensationalized WWE type. This is going to be real football. It's going to be real ball. It'll be fan friendly. NFL games are about 3 hours and 9 minutes. So the idea with the XFL is to play about 2:45, kind of quicker action, 25-second play clock. Vince McMahon, the CEO or the president owner of the XFL, has put $500 million in this league to make sure there's sustainability for 2 or 3 years. And then Andrew Luck's dad, Oliver Luck, who ran NFL Europe for 10 years, and NFL Europe lasted 17 years. Oliver is the CEO, president of the XFL. And they've done a really nice job of being methodical about it, kind of the layout of the team names. They actually have 3 TV contracts, I believe, with NBC, ESPN, and Fox, whereas the AAF was actually paying television networks to cover their games. So I think they've done a great job strategically wise, aligning themselves with great partnerships. They've done a nice job with the local 8 communities that they're in terms of community development, ticket sales, some of those things. And so I think it's definitely going to be successful, and I think it's definitely much needed to have a developmental league and places for guys to play who, you know, need time playing in games and getting film possibly to get their first NFL shot or maybe get a shot to get back in the NFL.
And Chris, I got to tell you, I love the logo for the Houston franchise. It's sort of Houston Oiler-esque, if you will. Are you guys hoping to sort of tap into the Love You Blue and the old Houston Oilers? Our good friend Dan Pastorini, are you hoping to build off of some of the things that they did with the Oilers?
I think there's a great history there. I remember when I was 9 years old, I did punt, pass, and kick in the Houston Astrodome. And I tugged on Dan Pastorini's pants and talked to him a little bit. And then we actually hung out later in life and played golf together and stuff. And obviously Bum Phillips and Earl Campbell. The logo is awesome. It's got a kind of a tribute to the Houston Oilers, but it's kind of a new, fresh look. And I think with June Jones's ties, June coached with the Houston Oilers. He coached with the Houston Gamblers, the old USFL team. So a lot of local appeal, local ties there. Houston is huge there. Football is huge in Houston and Texas. I think it's the fourth largest city in the country. So there's plenty of fan base to support the XFL and the NFL clubs. And I think you'll be able to take a family of four to an XFL game for around $100. So I think it's going to be economically makes sense. So we're really excited about it. We think we'll have a good following. We're going to play at University of Houston Stadium. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
5 questions for Chris.
Well, Chris, again, congrats on the award. And you've won many awards in your life. And that brings me to my question. You have a lot of people to thank, and we've talked about this with the other guys before you. Maybe you can recognize some of the people very early in your life before you got to Oregon who might have been instrumental in all your success over the years.
I got that plaque you guys sent me, by the way, the Hall of Fame plaque. That was phenomenal. I don't want to leave that out. It was very nice. So thank you for that. But I would say my mom and dad, Jess and Jane Miller. My dad will be 88 here October 23rd. Mom's is about 80. She'd be mad at me if I revealed her age, but they were wonderful, supportive parents through the years. I had many great youth football coaches and just athletic sports coaches. Jack Wigmore was my high school offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. He played at Washington State and played in the old World League with the Portland Storm back in the day, so he was a great influence. Bob Toledo, who I had as an offensive coordinator at Oregon, later was the head coach at UCLA, was a phenomenal influence, great football coach, football mind. And I really got to give Rich Brooks a lot of kudos. Rich, I grew up with his daughters. One was a year younger than me. One was a year older. So I knew him through middle school on up through high school. And then Rich recruited me heavily. So I stayed home to play for him. And then I played for him a year in 1995 with the St. Louis Rams, which was awesome. But I had a lot of wonderful influences in my life who taught me a lot of good life skills and core values and taught me a lot about, sports and athletics. And so been very blessed through that process in youth athletics, high school sports.
We've also talked in the past, Chris, about some of your great teammates. I was just looking the other day at the 1992 Falcons, just some of the names on the team like Andre Rison and Mike Pritchard. And, of course, one of them that stands out, of course, has to be Deion Sanders. And this is a guy you went up against in practice. He was 25 years old at the time. Just tell us how he was as a teammate, Chris, and did you think that he would be able to back up the personality with Hall of Fame numbers, which he ultimately did?
Yeah, prime time was phenomenal. I think when he first came from Florida State, he had that prime time mantra with all the, the self-promotion and the jewelry and all those things, the Mr. T starter kits. And we actually lockered right next to each other. So, he's a great guy, fun-loving, kind of a prankster, jokester. And there's kind of two different Deion Sanders that I think there's probably two of each of us, our youthful guys who might have ripped, roared, and ran and kind of partied and lived large back in our early NFL years. And then some of us found the good Lord and kind of priorities and other things in life that became more important, which Deion did. But, talking about going against him in practice, he was one of those guys who was as fast as he needed to be. I never saw anyone catch him ever. And if he had a kickoff return or a punt return or an interception in an NFL game, he might start high stepping at the 50 or the 40 with somebody who would have an angle on him. So, he knew his own speed and always had, enough speed on reserve to never really get caught. Great teammate. I've got to pay tribute to my good friend Bill Fralick, a longtime, played at University of Pittsburgh, longtime NFL guy, passed away at age 56 from some stomach cancer. Was a great teammate. I had Jamie Dukes, who does a lot of radio, TV stuff. Mike Ken was a phenomenal teammate. Michael Haynes, who was the second fastest man in the NFL behind Darrell Green. You mentioned Andre Rison and Mike Pritchard. We made the playoffs a couple of years there and had a great run. It was a lot of fun.
Chris, you also got to spend some time as the quarterbacks coach for the Arizona Cardinals going back to 2009, 2012. Got to work with Kurt Warner, who was clearly on his way to the Hall of Fame by that point. Larry Fitzgerald, another guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame whenever he decides to retire 5 years later. He's going to find himself there. What was it like that time, those years in Arizona, and getting to spend some time with those guys?
It was awesome. I was there in 2008 for training camp, so I was there their Super Bowl year and went to some of their games and kind of followed them closely. I got to know Kurt and Larry and Todd Haley, who was there running the offense, and of course Ken Wisenhunt and I were teammates back in Atlanta for 3 years. So it was fun to see the evolution of them going to the Super Bowl that year. Then in 2009, we made it to the second round of the playoffs and ended up losing to New Orleans in New Orleans the year they won the Super Bowl. And Anquan Bolden was on the team. It was just, I had so much respect for Anquan and his toughness and how tough of a player he was. And Larry is the consummate pro who's really driven and motivated by the fear of failure. He doesn't want to embarrass himself and drop a ball or do something wrong, and just has a tremendous work ethic and is a great human being. And then, of course, Kurt's story is pretty amazing. And I really learned what made special Hall of Fame guys tick. And it's just all the extra hours they put in. And Kurt had a photographic mind. I mean, he could see where the defenders were lined up pre-snap, and then post-snap, he may come over to the sideline. We'd say, "Hey, Kurt, why didn't you throw it over here?" And he's like, "Well, I saw the free safety come down, the wheel pushed that way, and the strong safety went that way." And you'd look at the pictures, the Polaroids on the sideline, it was a picture of exactly what he just told you. And that was very unique. I mean, he was very cerebral in that regard, and that's probably what made him, a Hall of Fame quarterback, with his ability to really see the defenses both pre-snap, post-snap, and then, his amazing accuracy. And he was a fierce competitor. So it was a lot of fun, and those 4 years were a blast for me coaching there.
And Chris, when you're working with a guy who is clearly on his way to the Hall of Fame like Warner was, what are the things that you're working on with him? Are you a second set of eyes looking at the film and looking at the pictures and seeing what was developing out on the field, so when he would come off, you could give him your opinion? What are those conversations like when you're working with a guy like Kurt?
Well, Chris, you nailed it on the head. Really, I was a second set of eyes for him. "Hey, C-Mill, what did you see there? Where would you have gone? What did you see?" And really, he was smarter than I was football wise. I never really studied it that hard back in the day when I played. I was busy doing other things at times, and became a better pro later in my career. But, Kurt's one of those probably top 5% most cerebral, brightest football IQ guys in the history of the NFL. So I would really, we worked on quick release drills every week, getting the ball out quicker. We would work on scramble drills and movement drills because he was 38 when I had him. So he was in the 12th year of his career and not as quick twitch and not as escapable as younger guys would be. So I worked him on the athletic stuff, getting out of the pocket, reset, getting feet set, making throws on the move, and some of those type of things. He actually felt like his release got a little bit quicker in year 12 based on, we did a quick release drill for every day during the entire season. I'm like, "Dude, don't you want to do something different?" He says, "No, man, let's start with the quick release drill." So he loved it. But we had a good rapport, and really, like you said, Chris, I was a second set of eyes and kind of a sounding board for him, and just tried to push him athletically a little bit at that point in his career.
Chris, can't let you go before we talk a little bit about your Oregon Ducks. They're off to a 2-1 start so far this season. They've got Stanford and then Cal, Washington State coming up. 3 of those teams are ranked right now. So I want to get your outlook for the rest of the season for the Ducks.
Well, I'm a huge Duck fan. I've known Justin Herbert, the quarterback, since he was about a 3rd or 4th grader. His dad was my all-state wide receiver and free safety in high school. So I've known the Herbert family forever. So I love that young man. He's extremely talented. Probably be in the Heisman conversation possibly and be a top 5 pick in the first round. But tough loss against Auburn. I felt like we had that game in control. We dropped a touchdown. We missed a field goal. We fumbled a fake zone read type handoff on about the 8 or 9 and kind of kept Auburn hanging around. And then they made a key play late in the game to win it. But this week, Stanford, I think Stanford got thumped this last week, I think, against Central Florida maybe or somebody. So
That's
Stanford
right.
will be hungry down there. They always play us tough down at the farm. And then we come back to Eugene for a tough stretch, Cal, Washington, and Wazoo. So The Pac-12 North, I think, is stronger of the two divisions. I'm hopeful that we can run the slate, but we still got to have some of our skilled guys, our wide receivers, step up a little bit, but we've been playing, pretty solid football so far. But the next 4 weeks will tell us a lot about where Oregon's at. But I'm excited for the season.
Bob, one more for Chris before we let him go.
Oh, sure, Chris. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but you played in an era where the quarterback rules in place now weren't in place there. You took your hits and everything. Overall health right now, Chris, and what is your opinion of the quarterback rules these days?
Well, that's a great question, Bob. I appreciate you asking. I quit drinking booze and beer. I used to get after beer pretty good back in the day with my lineman buddies, and so I'm in brain cell conservation mode, boys. So I'm trying not to burn anymore on tequila or margaritas, or haven't had a hangover in 12 years, which has actually been refreshing. So yeah, I feel good, man. I try to keep my brain busy with football, doing Sudoku puzzles and crosswords and word searches and taking ginkgo biloba and those type of things. So just trying to keep my mind right and keep it sharp around football and around young people. I'm a lot better off than some guys like, Al Toon and Merrill Hodge and Mike Webster and Junior Seau and Dave Duerson, some of those guys, who had much more severe symptoms than I had or whatever. So I've been blessed in that regard. I think the rules are excellent. I think the other night there was a roughing the quarterback penalty in a game, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was a perfect form tackle. The D lineman didn't take the guy down with any intent or didn't lift and pile drive him. So I think they erred on the side of being overcautious there. But I think you got to keep the frontline guys healthy. Drew Brees goes out with an accidental thumb, where I think he just had a good successful surgery. But those guys are the guys who sell tickets and put fans in the stands, and you want to keep those guys healthy. So, but I think we're keeping receivers more healthy going across the middle with the targeting and trying to eliminate the helmet-to-helmet shots or the hard shoulder to a helmet shot. So, at times it's a little bit too cautious, and they may err on the side of caution on throwing a flag that's really not a roughing the quarterback penalty. But I think guys are staying healthier. And at the end of the day, we don't want to see guys on the field with one arm stuck in the air and their helmet kind of shivering a little bit and they've just been knocked unconscious. We'd like to see less of those. And at the end of the day, we want these guys healthy and living good quality lives and creating great entertainment for the fans. So I like where the game's at right now.
Chris, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, and then obviously look ahead to your time in the XFL as well.
Well, I'm not a big social media guy, but I think it's what you guys know it better than I am. I think it's Chris Miller QB, I believe, at Chris Miller QB on Twitter. Yeah, at Chris Miller QB on Twitter. That's really about the only social media I do. I'm on there some, relatively active, follow the Houston Roughnecks stuff. Our head coach, good buddy June Jones, is on there quite a bit. So that's where you can find me. I'm coaching high school football up here at Westland High School in Portland, and then I'll be heading to Houston in early December for OTAs. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys again for having me, and you guys do a phenomenal job, and I'm honored to be in your Hall of Fame. So thank you very much.
The honor's ours.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Chris. Yeah, the honor is ours. We can't thank you enough for how great you've been to us over the years and coming back and being a part of the show as often as you have. We hope you'll continue to do it, and we look forward to catching up with you hopefully a little bit later on in the football season.
Sounds great, guys. Keep up the great work.
Talk soon, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Take care. All the best to you and your family.